staunch opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Yeah. Don't snap your fingers at me.
Okay, I'm starting. Hello. Welcome to the football episode this week.
Welcome to a new week.
This is a new week, yeah. We hope you enjoyed the episodes from last week. And we're doing football despite the lack of, in my opinion, any interesting kind of football. It was an international break. But yet there's still some things we can talk about. And Klaus, I just don't want Klaus to perform football withdrawals. That's why I've done this.
Thank you for saving me.
He is saved. Anyway, a little bit to go on. There were some Nations League games to look at. For anyone who doesn't know, the Nations League is something that UEFA essentially created so that there's less dead rubber, boring friendlies during international breaks.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, in my opinion, and I can ask Maxi's opinion as well, but the thing is, I think by trying to solve a certain issue, they've created some others. In that, because you have this Nations League now, and essentially every game you play in Europe now as an international footballer is competitive, because you can either win the Nations League or you're trying to qualify for the Euros or the World Cup, you're giving less time to these players to get rest.
Do you think the players take the Nations League that serious? Because I don't think there's any international player who would say, I've won 5 World Cups and a Nations League.
I don't know how much the players take it seriously or not, but I think the unions want to, the further they get in the competition, the higher. And the second thing is coaches are judged on their performance, and if it's about a trophy like the Nations League, I think most of the coaches are, from what I saw also in the games, the coaches are playing their best sides, so the top players are just playing more and more football. So that's quite an interesting angle. What do we feel? You're not a big.
I don't think it's that. I think in some of the matchups we had this week were big, and that's why I think you saw the best teams play against each other. But I think if you
record TV numbers for Germany's second game against Italy as well, by the way. Yeah.
Do you want to run us through some of the games that happened?
Yeah, Portugal against Denmark. These are now the quarterfinals over 2 legs. Portugal initially lost the first game 1-0 to Denmark. Came back emphatically though and wiped the floor with them back in Portugal to progress 5-2. A missed penalty from Ronaldo, for example, but they got through and Portugal looked like a strong side. France beating Croatia on penalties. Very impressive of France to turn. The first game was 2-0 to Croatia, and in France they managed to win 2-0 and get to penalties. Unbelievable still to see what Croatia's doing on the international stage, because they have a very aging squad as well. Spain beating the Netherlands on penalties, heartbreaking for the Netherlands, but I think Spain was always favourites there. And then Germany. I was speaking to Maxi on the weekend off camera that the German team is so unsexy. There's so many names there. It's like Kleindienst up top and just people that you're like, this nobody knows who they are, never mind. But getting the result against a good Italy side.
Yeah,
exactly.
Thriller. They're 3-3, the return one. Germany were leading 3-0 at half-time.
Yeah.
And Italy came back and scored, I think, a last-minute penalty.
Exactly.
But Germany had won the first leg. Maybe just to get back onto that Portugal result, because you just mentioned it before we went on air. I saw a video on Twitter of Ronaldo skying a free kick into like row Z with like sort of the caption, this guy's holding Portugal back. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he's holding Portugal back, or do you think his levels in training and stuff are so big that he motivates the squad?
I think it's hard to have too many points that point to having start for Portugal. I think that's a stretch. I think given the fact that he plays in Saudi Arabia as well, you can say what you want about that. No money in the world is going to convince me that the Saudi Arabian league is the sixth best league in the world. Like, that's what some of these players. Yeah. But I mean, if someone's paying me $200 million a year to play in the league, I'll tell them whatever they want.
Yeah.
So I think that those are the two factors. Do I think that a personality like him within a dressing room can get you over the line? 100%, I think I do. Do I think chucking him on at the dying embers of a game to get you a goal in heat in like very important scenarios? I think he can still do it. And I think, look, it's hard to argue with how good he still looks physically. But I don't see how he can start for Portugal.
Would he let himself be played like that? Because when I've seen him in other competitions, he's like, don't take me off the field. I am the star player.
Yeah, I think he's almost like bigger than the coach in a sense. So I don't know if you've got, like Eric Ten Hag did it at Man United. He like took him out and then eventually sold him. And it's such a big gamble that if it doesn't come off, that's all that people point to, and you get so much additional heat for taking him off, like from fans, because he's obviously such a superstar, that it just adds like such an additional dimension of stress to a coach's life. So it's almost like he has to come to the realization that either he has to change the way he plays, because he's still so self-centric in the way he plays, which has made him such a superstar. He has to change that to being more of just a team guy who's just pass and move.
I think there's enough examples where these kind of things have come off. I think you can mention from the rugby world, there's a couple, even in the Springbok setup, where a couple of the guys were taken. It's obviously such a different game, but if you're just looking at taking personalities for the sake of them being personalities, like a Skulk Brits is one. I mean, Dwayne was still at the top of his game at the last World Cup, so no questions asked there. But there are examples where just having that kind of a person, and I think, people talk about aura and they talk about belief and everything, and I think if anyone believes, it's Ronaldo. And I think he always, every time people think he's done, he kind of has another facet and another sort of chapter in his career. But I think the biggest question mark is over this point, that he doesn't see his. I don't think he sees his own value as that player in the squad. I think he sees his own value as wanting to be on the pitch, and that could be detrimental to Portugal. But looking forward, we'll have to look towards the next World Cup. It's in 2026, just next year, which is crazy. Qatar feels, we were talking about this on the weekend, Qatar feels like it was just yesterday, but also feels like a very long time ago. They'll have the same, Argentina, the defending champions, will have the same question to answer with Messi. He's still playing. He's still there. I think he goes, and I think he's maybe more of the type of personality to take a step back and be part of a squad. But interesting format. It's the biggest World Cup ever. It's being hosted in 3 countries, Canada, USA, and Mexico. 48 teams, most teams ever. Interesting format as well. And I think, personally, a great and very exciting format for fans. So you have 16 groups of 3 teams. The top 2 from each group go through. And then you have knockouts from the round of 32.
Okay.
So,
but more knockout football.
Exactly, yeah, and you know how it is in football. There's always some surprises, and your team could get on a run, and who knows? I think for someone like Mexico, for example, crazy fanatical fans that tend to have a pretty good World Cup showing, pretty solid team. Yeah, they're the type of people where I think, if they really get on a run, they could knock out some big teams.
Could also be a little bit of a blessing in disguise for some of the African teams, because those you've never seen an African team go further than the quarterfinals, and when it's knockout football, and there are some good African teams out there, they can always spring a surprise.
Yeah, and I think with the increased globalization of the game actually strengthens up African football, because I think there's more and more opportunities for African players to get scouted and play in pretty high level football across the continent. Guys playing in leagues like Turkey, for example, it's a high level league and it's a strong league. So that's interesting to see. Also, a lot of expat African players going back to play for countries like Cote d'Ivoire or Cameroon or Nigeria, even if they've grown up in other parts of Europe, for example. So definitely exciting times there. Early favorites, bookie favorites, Spain, Brazil, France. I think that's quite telegraphed, to be honest.
Do you know that just on France, that the viewership numbers for the French rugby team are bigger than the ones for the French football team recently?
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's big, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, rugby is a massive sport in France, but I would never have thought that would be bigger.
I don't know if it was just like the last 6 nations versus compared to whatever France played in the Nations League, but I saw a stat like that recently, and it surprised me.
I wonder how much of that is linked to the dynamic of the local league and the general interest in football. Because I don't think if you ask league if they're worried about general interest in the league as a whole, I think they'd tell you they're probably worried.
Yeah,
because it's just so dominant by PSG.
Yeah,
and all of their clubs are struggling. I mean, Lyon on the brink of administration. Yeah. Bordeaux have to start from amateur football again because they went bust. Yeah. So I think generally I think that obviously drives general interest in your national team. because if you're watching and you're following football in France, you're going to go watch the national team. So interesting, but they just churn out players like it's nobody's business.
Oh, for sure. And their national team is still so good.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting to see Deschamps. I mean, he could put his name down as one of the greatest ever as an international coach if he manages to win another World Cup.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because then that's two Euros and 2 World Cups if he does manage to do it.
And I mean, they were unlucky to lose out to Argentina in the last one.
Exactly.
Great game.
Couple of surprise qualifiers. Sorry, Klaus, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask something about the World Cup because it's spread over such a large region. Obviously, it's going to be difficult for fans, right, to follow their teams because you're essentially going over 3 countries, you said, right?
Yeah.
What is it like for the players because they also have to travel a lot? Is it as severe for them in terms of not getting enough training time in?
The Indian football team is going to just stay in Dubai. Play from there.
At this rate, the Canadian team might have to. Well, maybe US will just have 2 teams. Anyway, we digress. I did do some research on this, and they say that to watch the 2 group games, for if you're looking to follow your team for the 2 group games, you're looking at an average cost of between $4,000 and $5,000 for tickets, flights, and accommodation. Yes. And you might have to do something stupid like over 15,000 kilometers of flying. If in the worst case, because you're because of how your team will play and where they will play.
That's wild because most of the fans that are nearby, where I would assume that tickets would be cheaper, would be your South American teams, obviously, and then obviously your Central America and America. But I mean, your richer countries, i.e., your European fans, they still need to pay however much it costs to get over there in the first place. I mean,
look, I've said it 100 times on this podcast that I think any move that is done to make it a better experience for fans and more exciting for fans, whether you're watching at home or in the stadium, I'm for. I think this is a joke. The next World Cup in 2030 is also hosted amongst 6 different hosts.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that in a bit. 6 different hosts, but they have announced now that this is the last time they will be doing this.
This is not a hot take, but FIFA is a criminal organization.
No, I'm fully aware of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like, I mean...
Yeah. Why get bribed by one country when you get bribed by 3?
Such a money-making...
It's a 3-for-1 special.
Yeah. Oh, God, it makes me upset. And it's the same... The problem is we discussed the same thing with the ICC and cricket, is that it's just sort of... You've got so much time to plan out these events, and all it is just one big money grab.
It is true, yeah.
And I feel like the World Cups of the past... Okay, now you sound like a bit of a shitster when you just say everything in the past was better, but like... If you look at so my earliest memory was a little bit of 98, but more 2002 and 2006. Those were like big World Cups. Obviously 2010 we were there.
Have I ever told you the story about 2002 and my family?
No.
You remember those McDonald's fucking, you fill in a thing and you can win a trip to the World Cup final and all that bullshit that I always used to think was just a marketing tool. My fucking parents won it.
Did they go?
No. It was too. It was too much, too stressful. My dad waited until I was about 20 to tell me this because he knows me and my fat ass would have fucking thrown a massive tantrum.
Well, who do you think they bought the McDonald's for?
Exactly. I essentially ate my way to that prize for them. And then they decided not to go. They gave it to anyway. So yeah. But it's true. But
I thought those tournaments were so. Yeah. Obviously, it's okay. So the 2002 World Cup was hosted in Japan and South Korea, and the 2006 World one was hosted in Germany. But my memories of those ones were like the fan experience. I think even 2010 and 2014 in South Africa and Brazil. Like I don't understand why we have to be so extra, and I understand growing the game, and I'm sure the Middle East also wants to watch live football and stuff, but I don't know if we're ready, and I don't know if having a World Cup in the middle of December then is the future, and now spreading it across basically 1.5 continents is also the right way to move.
Yeah. Look, I think if you're going to grow the game, then grow it, but you don't grow it by hosting World Cups. You grow it, in my opinion, at grassroots.
Yeah. Especially not when these World Cups are almost bankrupt countries who host them.
Exactly, yeah. No, it definitely doesn't make any sense. I think there's a reason you've seen it shift now to, I don't know what the dynamic is with Morocco, Portugal, and Spain, but that's why you've seen it shift to richer nations now, I think. I think there's a real reason why Qatar took the World Cup in 22, and why the US decided to do it with Canada and Mexico, all 3 rich nations as a whole. because I think it's just not tenable. And I mean, I don't know how Portugal and Spain are going to fund any of it. I think Morocco's a monarchy, so they can decide to just centralize funds and do it. But Portugal and Spain, the finals is said to be hosted in the Bernabeu. Apparently, that's what's
Right.
muted as hosting it. Morocco are building the biggest stadium in the world in Casablanca for that. I don't get the Uruguay, Argentina, Paraguay thing either. They want to do it because it's to commemorate the century,
Yeah.
the 100 years since the first World Cup.
Mhm.
But now,
It's
how is that going to work? Like, why don't you just fucking take a couple pictures, show them in the stadium, say that was fun,
Yeah.
and we're glad we're still doing it, and get on with it. I don't understand how this is.
One game will be hosted in Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay.
So this is the lunacy of it as well. Though they've said they've said Morocco, Portugal, and Spain can have it, so they're hosting it. But there has to be some games, some sort of part of the tournament has to take place in Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay. Nobody knows how they're going to do it.
Oh my goodness.
public viewing. So a massive public viewing.
We will sponsor your Wi-Fi for the 4 weeks of the tournament.
That's insane. Just to come back to next year's World Cup, hosted also, I think, mainly in the USA. Did you guys see the attendance for the USA versus Paraguay game?
No, was it bad?
Yeah, it was hosted in LA. I think if there was 100 people in that stadium, it would have been a lot.
And there's like
There was-
a lot of Paraguayans in
There was
the US as well.
no one there, no one in that stadium.
This
And I wonder, and that again, I know there's some football interested people, soccer interested people in the USA, but like,
I have to say though, terrible US team, probably the worst in a long time. So anyone, and this, I'm so glad because I've always said this about Maurizio Pochettino, who's now coaching the United States team. That guy is not all that he's written up to be. And all these Spurs people and everyone, even some people in the United block used to say, we have to get him. He's such a dynamic coach. He's a pile of shit. And he's proving it at an international level too. And honestly, the States have so much more money than all of those unions. This shouldn't even be a debate. And yet, did you see the Panama players? After
Yeah.
scoring, they celebrated with Thierry
Thierry
Henry.
Henry. That was cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is a little bit of America bashing, but you always love when, because they're so loud, and whenever, because they're doing the same with rugby in a sense that they're like, oh, we'll pick up the game, and because we've got such funding and such depth of talent and stuff, we'll be the best at the sport in like, because I think in like 10, 15 years, because I think they predicted that they'd win a football World Cup by like 2035 or 2050 or something like that, and they're not going to.
Well, yeah, they were very loud about it. They said that the next time we will host a World Cup, because I think the last time they hosted a World Cup was 1990. Was 94? 94. And they said, I remember after that, they said one of the greatest World Cups in history, and the next time the United States hosts a World Cup, they will win. It's not going to happen.
The funny thing
Here
is,
comes the US's biggest critic.
the funny thing is, they always like to say we're world champions when they win the NHL, the NBA, the MLB, and all that sort of stuff. And then as soon as the rest of the world actually competes,
Well, I mean, in some of them, yeah.
except for Olympics.
Well, yeah, and American football also, they are literally, they're the best.
I mean, they're the only ones who play.
I'm sure there's like, the Germans love to play it now as well.
Yeah, but nobody's playing in the NHL. The NHL itself is
Well,
just
isn't there? There's at the next Olympics. There's
Yeah.
a tag football.
Flag football.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they can be the best.
Yeah. But you know the famous story behind the whole World Series thing, right? Baseball. Why they say why it's called the World Series?
No.
It's because the first time the tournament was hosted, it was sponsored by the World newspaper. So people love to bash America for that. They're saying they
Really?
say they're the best in the world and it's only American. No, literally, that's the history behind it. So be careful. But the rest of the sports, I agree with you.
But I think they are the best in basketball
Ooh,
most of the time at the Olympics.
it's,
They-
yeah.
They play different rules as well.
Yeah, but at the Olympics
Yeah.
they play the
Yeah.
European rules, and they still
Yeah, the World Champs has been colourful
Yeah, but
over the last few years.
the World Cup, the World Champs, the World Cup. They don't send their best team.
But now then they must send their best team. So we can see. So we can settle this.
And then hockey, I think they are
Close.
No,
Canada.
okay, is it? I mean, they only squeezed them out just in.
What
that
about the
formation.
hurdy-gurdy guys from
No,
Norway?
the Russians?
Canada, the Russians, the Serbians.
I don't know
There's-
enough about this.
There's a whole bunch of teams that Germany even won the 1 year, which was weird. I don't
and then the
understand
other
how
one
that
is
happened.
baseball, and I know then baseball they're the best, but I know Japan is also not bad in
Japan,
baseball.
Cuba, Dominican
Yeah, true.
Republic.
South
But I
America,
think-
South America, South Korea, aren't they also really into the
I
baseball?
think so. I mean, it was a shock to me when I found out that the national sport of Japan was baseball.
Yeah,
Which is
that is weird.
Bizarre.
You would think it would be like
Japan's pastime.
karate.
And they drop a bomb on the Oaks and they're like, cool. we'll take that sport as well.
Yeah.
Very strange that they celebrate an American sport so much.
Tough. Well, I mean, a lot of colonized countries celebrate the colonizer's sport.
That's true.
Well, it's the only way to
Wow.
find.
Max is panicking.
We have gone down a dark path here.
All right, as you can hear,
But you know what the history of that is? Like in cricket, it was always like, this is our one opportunity to prove that we can beat them.
It's like the script behind The Longest Yard and Mean Machine. It's the only way that they can take on the guards.
Oh, right, yes.
there you go.
What are you talking about?
Well, as you can hear, this was the football segment, and we will see you tomorrow for rugby, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Sorry that was so over the show.
Don't apologize. Stand by what you say.